What if the old things you nearly threw away could turn your tiny space into something magical? This video isn't about big budgets or perfect gardens. It's about real ideas, made with love, using what you already have. Welcome to Archon Aesthetic Studio. Today, we'll share 15+ cheap and recycled tiny garden ideas. Simple, beautiful, and yes, totally doable. Timestamps are in the description. Skip around if you like. And if something moves you, leave a comment. I'd love to hear it. If this inspires you, start today. Use what's around you. Let your hands tell a story. You might see just a video, but behind this is a real story and a family holding onto a dream. Every like, every comment, every subscribe, it keeps that dream alive. Thank you for being here. Thank you for seeing this. One, recycled tin can planters. Sometimes, the smallest balcony becomes the most cherished corner of a home, not because of its size, but because of what it holds. In this simple space, lined with iron railings and kissed by sunlight, ordinary tin cans are no longer trash. They are transformed, dressed in cheerful colors, decorated with polka dots, garden quotes, and strokes of care. They hang gently by jute twine, swaying softly with the breeze, cradling blossoms and herbs that greet each new day. These aren't store-bought planters. They're stories. Tiny vessels of creativity made from last night's soup tins, now holding life instead of leftovers. Look closely and you'll see more than flowers. You'll see persistence, play, and a little poetry. A yellow daisy blooming inside a vintage-labeled can, mint and thyme bursting out of hand-painted stripes, and tucked beside it all, a humble cup of tea waiting patiently on a chair. And then, there's the wooden garden wall, worn with time, softened by weather, and made beautiful by rows of cans painted in summer tones. Yellow like sunlight, turquoise like calm, rust red like the earth. Each one a little canvas of joy. Nasturtiums stretch toward the fading sun. The scent of basil lingers in the evening air. Everything here feels lived in, imperfect, real, and heartfelt. This is not just gardening. It's a quiet celebration of making do and making magic, of using what we have and discovering beauty through our own hands. You don't need a large yard. You don't need fancy supplies. You just need a few forgotten tins, some soil, a splash of paint, and the belief that even the most ordinary thing can bloom when seen with fresh eyes. Let your balcony rail become a garden gallery. Let your shed wall tell a new story. Let your afternoon become an act of gentle transformation. Because when you plant in recycled tin, you're not just growing herbs, you're growing hope and crafting joy from what might have been thrown away. Two, Mosaic garden stepping stones. In some gardens, magic doesn't grow from seed but from shards, fragments of the past, brought together with care and color. Take a closer look at the ground beneath your feet, and you might find stories woven into every step. These stepping stones are not just walkways. They are little canvases of joy, made from what was once broken. Discarded plates, chipped teacups, old bathroom tiles, all repurposed into something beautiful, something that leads you forward. The first path, playful and bright, brings a smile before you even notice it. A raised garden bed holds a row of square and round stones, each one telling a different tale. One sings with the innocence of children, drawn in fragments of mosaic like crayon memories. Another beams with splashes of carnival colors, red, orange, turquoise, yellow, like confetti frozen in time. And beside them, elegant blue and white tiles pay homage to forgotten kitchens and quiet meals from years gone by. These are not just stepping stones. They are memories made walkable. Further down the journey, the path curves gently through a lavender border. This one is softer, quieter. Plates once used for Sunday tea are now sealed into place, bearing handwritten notes and initials of love. The teacups have become part of the trail, their rims and curves forming a poetic winding through scent and shadow. The whole garden whispers, someone has loved here, someone has lived, and someone has chosen to make their mark with things others left behind. And then, a final garden greets you with patterns bold and whimsical. Swirling spirals, sunflowers with ceramic petals, and abstract shapes laid with surprising precision. The path sits between blooming daisies and purple salvia, and the morning dew adds a delicate sparkle to every tile, as if nature itself is blessing each handmade detail. This isn't about perfection. It's about presence. You don't need professional tools or even symmetry. What you need is a spirit willing to reuse, to reimagine, and to slow down long enough to find beauty in the broken. Practical tip: to recreate something like this, gather old tiles or crockery, place them into shallow trays of concrete or mortar, and press them gently into patterns you love. Let the designs be your own. Sealing the surface can protect the colors through seasons of rain and shine. This idea is a gentle invitation, not a step-by-step guide, but a creative suggestion for those who believe gardens should be personal, handmade, and filled with heart. And if you ever thought your small space wasn't enough to build something memorable, let these stones guide your feet and your imagination home. Three, teacup bird feeders. Sometimes, beauty perches quietly on the rim of a teacup. In a world that often rushes and replaces, there is something deeply comforting in the idea of repurposing, not to fix, but to reimagine. These teacups, once the vessels of morning rituals and quiet evening chats, now stand outdoors, filled not with tea, but with seeds, an offering for birds and a gentle invitation to pause. Placed gently among herbs on a windowsill or nestled within lavender blooms, they bring a story to the garden. A bird feeder made from a vintage teacup isn't loud. It's not fancy, but it's unforgettable. In one garden, a porcelain cup rests upon a copper garden stake, rising just above the foliage. Its delicate floral rim, faded with time, cradles sunflower seeds beneath the soft gaze of morning light. A sparrow stops by. It doesn't stay long, but it doesn't need to. The moment is enough. In another space, a collection of mismatched cups sway from a wooden beam above a balcony box full of blooming petunias. The wind rocks them gently like lullabies, and the shadows they cast against the wall tell stories of quiet afternoons and unexpected guests with feathers. And there, just by the window, 3 teacups sit on terracotta saucers, scattered with seeds, framed by herbs. A feather rests nearby, evidence of a visit, a thank you from nature whispered in soft wings. These aren't just feeders. They're little altars of intention. Acts of reuse that turn trash into poetry. The kind of DIY project that doesn't require perfection, only presence, only care. You don't need a sprawling garden or a wallet full of supplies to create something meaningful. Just a forgotten cup, a spot of glue, and the willingness to share space with the wild. Because sometimes, what birds are really drawn to isn't just the food. It's the quiet love behind the offering. Four, vertical crate shelves. In a quiet corner where walls once felt too bare and space too small, something begins to bloom, not from the earth, but from creativity. Old wooden crates, once used to carry apples, bottles, or forgotten market goods, now rise with quiet pride. Stacked gently or hung thoughtfully, they carry not just plants, but pieces of character. Some are painted in faded whites, mint blues, or soft rose pinks. Others are left raw, their edges chipped, their wood sun-worn, telling stories of hands and harvests past. Here in these modest frames live pots of time, lavender, ivy that spills like stories told over afternoon tea. A pair of gloves rests on a ledge, a hint that someone has been here, tending not just to plants, but to peace. One crate holds a lantern, its candle waiting for twilight. Another hides garden tools beside a ceramic mug, stained with soil and time. In the evening light, everything glows golden. You can almost hear the breeze rustle through the leaves and the soft crunch of gravel underfoot. This idea is not about perfection. It's about presence. It's about turning what you already have into something worth pausing for. You don't need a blueprint, just a few crates, a brush of imagination, and maybe the courage to begin. If your balcony wall is empty, or a corner in your yard feels forgotten, let this be your nudge. Stack 2 crates. Paint 1. Place a watering can on top, like a crown. Let it be wild. Let it be gentle. Let it be yours. Five, picture frame plant displays. Sometimes, the most captivating galleries aren't hung in museums. They bloom quietly against sunlit walls. Here, vintage frames once filled with portraits or forgotten landscapes are reborn with life itself. A hanging pot of violet petunias appears midair, encased within the lines of a wooden frame, not just as a plant, but as living artwork. This idea turns blank outdoor walls into moments of surprise and serenity. It's deceptively simple. An old frame, a hanging hook, a modest potted flower. And yet, when arranged together, they feel like memories you didn't know you had. Against a brick wall, chipped, old, full of texture and stories, a playful rhythm unfolds. Ivy trails downward through strands of jute twine, resting gently against pads of moss cradled by colored frames. Bright teal, coral, lemon yellow. The tones stand out like brushstrokes on a raw canvas. Each plant finds its own story, its own shadow in the afternoon light. You can feel the city outside this space, but this wall keeps something still, like a sigh, a breath of green in the midst of brick and bustle. This isn't just vertical gardening. It's visual poetry, made from the things we might otherwise throw away. A third setting slows everything down. A fence, aged by time. Light filters through the slats, and inside empty frames, tiny plants hang like secrets. A golden frame cradles an air plant that curls like a ballerina mid-spin. Another frame holds a pot with trailing vines that spill gently downward like a thought you've yet to finish. The frames don't match, and that's the beauty. Together, they whisper that no space is too small, no item too old, no wall too plain to be touched by nature. This isn't decor. It's intimacy, framed with intention and kept alive with care. Six Cutlery Windchimes. There's a special kind of music that doesn't come from instruments, but from memory. A soft, honest melody, carried on the breeze, created not by strings or keys, but by the clinking of old forks, spoons, and ladles that once lived in a kitchen drawer. In a quiet garden nook, these forgotten utensils have been given new life. Some dangle from a ring of worn bamboo, their curved edges catching dappled light as they sway. Others are tied to an arched metal rod, their handles still engraved with the names of old hotels or distant birthdays. One ladle turns in slow circles beside a sprig of mint, brushing gently against a butter knife. The wind moves through them like breath, soft, uncertain, never quite the same. This idea, though beautifully simple, holds deeper resonance. You don't need to search far or spend anything at all. You just need to notice what's already around you. A loose drawer of mismatched spoons, a forgotten whisk, a rusty tea strainer with stories still tucked in its mesh. Together, they make not just sound, but feeling. Creating a wind chime like this isn't about symmetry or polish. Let the spoons remain tarnished. Let the forks bend slightly. Let the imperfections sing. Because what you're building isn't decor, it's atmosphere. A soundtrack for early mornings and dusklit evenings. A reason to pause while watering your herbs. A detail that surprises guests and makes them smile without quite knowing why. If you listen closely, the garden speaks. Not loudly, but softly, through rustling leaves, through trailing vines brushing wood, and now, through old silver tapping gently in rhythm. This is the kind of garden detail that doesn't ask for attention, but earns it. And once you've made one, you may find yourself listening a little longer, just to hear the stories in the wind. Seven. Painted rock cacti. There's something profoundly poetic about transforming something cold and inanimate, like a stone, into something that breathes color, warmth, and joy. In these quiet corners of a tiny garden, pebbles once forgotten by the roadside now bloom as playful, handmade cacti. Look closely at this miniature desert dream. No thorns, no watering, just sunlight, paint, and patience. Each rock has been lovingly hand-painted in shades of deep jade and olive, with dainty spines dotted in white. Some even bloom, tiny brushstroke flowers in fiery red, soft coral, or sunny yellow, perched delicately on top. From a distance, you'd swear they were alive. The first scene feels like a page from a children's storybook. A triangle of gravel, enclosed by painted bricks, becomes a tiny world of wonder. Here, imagination replaces soil, and creativity grows wild. A blue watering can lies nearby, useless for these plants, but essential in spirit. They may not need water, but they feed something else entirely, the soul. In another space, a weathered garden shelf cradles a collection of these painted cacti. Their arrangement tells stories of mornings spent painting outside, of little hands helping to mix shades, of quiet laughter shared over smudged fingers and drying pots. The background fence adds rustic charm, while potted lavender brings a whisper of fragrance to the scene. And then there's the urban balcony, a single round table bathed in golden light. There's a teacup, still steaming. A moment of pause. The cactus stones, gathered in terracotta bowls, are companions to this stillness. They don't grow, but they glow. They don't ask, but they give. This idea is more than a craft. It's a reminder, even the smallest, simplest things, like smooth rocks and leftover paint, can become part of something beautiful, something meaningful, something that turns a corner of your space into a sanctuary. And maybe, as you sit with your cup of tea, you'll see them not just as objects, but as tiny acts of joy, planted with love, painted with peace. Eight, old ladder plant stand. In the quiet corners of everyday life, there are objects that hold history in their grain, and sometimes they find their second life not as what they were, but as what they become. Take, for instance, an old wooden ladder, perhaps once used to reach ceilings or fix a broken bulb, now gently repurposed to hold something softer, new life. The chipped paint, the weathered steps, they all speak of hands that once worked hard. And now, they carry pots of rosemary, cheerful geraniums, or tiny clusters of cherry tomatoes that ripen in the sun like rubies hiding among green. You don't need a greenhouse to grow something meaningful. Just a bit of space, a bit of light, and a willingness to see the extraordinary in the forgotten. A simple pastel-painted ladder placed in a sunlit garden corner can bloom into a vertical sanctuary, herbs curling toward the breeze, flowers spilling like laughter down the steps. It's not just beautiful, it's brilliantly practical. A-frame ladders, for example, hold planks like natural shelves. Add terracotta pots, a pair of gloves, maybe even your morning cup of tea on the bottom rung. Suddenly, your tiny patio or balcony becomes a garden you want to linger in, where every plant has its place and every breath smells of mint, thyme, or tomatoes on the vine. What makes this idea magical is not perfection, but presence. The charm of something repurposed is that it remembers where it came from while offering something new. And maybe, in its own quiet way, that's what every garden does for us too. Nine, terracotta candle holders. There's a kind of light that doesn't just brighten, it warms. Not with wattage, but with memory. It's the glow of small hands repurposing old terracotta pots, the whisper of candlelight meeting clay, the hush of a garden settling in for nightfall. Imagine walking a gravel path as the day exhales. Along the edge, terracotta pots, tilted gently like sleepy heads, shelter flickering tea lights underneath. The flames don't clamor for attention. They flutter with humility, casting soft halos against stone and soil. Some pots were hand-painted vines and flowers, aged but proud, speaking of quiet afternoons with a brush and a cup of tea. You don't just see the glow, you feel it. It dances across the edges of parsley leaves, reflects on the curve of petals, and settles into your chest like a lullaby. It's the kind of detail that makes a small space feel sacred. Elsewhere, on a stone patio scattered with cushions and opened books, stacked Minipots cradle lead flames. Safe, simple, and beautiful. Their pastel coats are scribbled with ivy motifs and gentle imperfections, and they sit as if waiting for a story to continue. These lights don't just illuminate a corner. They tell you this: there is value in the quiet, in the handmade, in repurposing something forgotten into something glowing. And if you look up, there, on the garden fence, a row of terracotta bells hang upside down, each sheltering a single live flame. They sway slightly in the dusk breeze, as if breathing in the evening. The wood behind them glows a muted amber. Beneath them, pansies and daisies bloom like painted confetti. You hear nothing but the soft crackle of wax and the wind among petals. Practical tip: creating these lanterns takes little more than clay pots, wire hooks, and a safe base for your candles. Tea lights work beautifully. Opt for lead for safety, or real flame for gentle scent and motion. Use leftover paint or permanent markers to decorate the pots, and stagger them at different heights for charm and flow. You don't need electricity to bring your garden to life after sunset. Just a few old pots, a handful of candles, and the desire to make your space not just seen, but felt. This is garden magic, and it starts with clay. Painted garden poles, PVC or wooden dowel totems. In a world where concrete often claims more ground than soil, there still exist small pockets of rebellion. Quiet places where imagination grows wild and color finds a voice again. Welcome to one of those places. Somewhere between the rustling of lavender and the golden whisper of marigolds, stand little pillars of joy, painted garden poles rising from the earth like playful totems. They're not grand, nor perfect, and yet they speak volumes. One is made from an old curtain rod, wrapped in a collage of old world maps, floral magazine scraps, and bits of travel brochures. Sealed under layers of matte glue, it doesn't just stand, it tells a story. It feels like a journey paused mid-sentence, now rooted among basil and thyme, next to a wooden sign that reads softly, "Grow Wild." Elsewhere, near the edge of a narrow patio, wooden dowels peek out of the soil in a rhythm only nature understands. Their designs are subtle, zigzags, chevrons, gentle stripes, painted in earthy tones that whisper rather than shout. Mint brushes against them. The breeze is mild. Everything feels intentional without trying too hard. And then, there are the bold ones. PVC poles painted in candy-colored hues, dancing with polka dots, smiling suns, spirals, hearts, vines. They rise out of a sea of orange marigolds like joyful sentinels. Some have seashells or buttons glued to them, tiny tokens that catch the sun like laughter in motion. These poles don't try to blend in. They were born to stand out. And that's the beauty of them. These garden poles don't have to serve a rigid function. They simply make space feel loved. They turn the ordinary into something worth pausing for. Want to make one? All you need is a leftover dowel, maybe a piece of PVC or even a broomstick no longer sweeping. Paint it with whatever colors your mood chooses. Let your kids join. Let your morning coffee dictate the palette. Let go of the need for straight lines. Seal it. Stake it. Smile when it stands. In a garden, the smallest thing can become the centerpiece, not because it demands to be seen, but because it holds a part of you, a part that chose to create when it could have just discarded. So let them grow, not just the herbs or the flowers, but your ideas, your colors, your freedom to be wildly, colorfully yourself. And maybe, just maybe, the next person who wanders by your tiny garden will stop, tilt their head, and smile, because in that painted pole, they'll recognize something quietly brave. (11) Hanging juice bottle drip irrigators. In the quiet corners of an early summer morning, while the world is still heavy with dew and the breeze speaks in whispers, an ingenious little rhythm begins. Drip, drip, drip. Lining a humble wooden fence or a modest balcony rail, a row of upside-down plastic bottles begins its daily ritual. Their bodies are clear and familiar, once vessels for soda, juice, or water, but now transformed into something more intimate. Each bottle, suspended by loops of twine or carefully knotted jute, bears tiny hand-drilled holes at its cap. And from those holes, soft droplets fall in slow, meditative cadence onto the waiting soil below. No irrigation system, no expensive equipment, just thoughtful reuse and the desire to care. In one garden, the bottles wear painted waves and dots, playful armor for their newfound purpose. Beneath them, basil leans forward, dill stretches upward, and cilantro rustles in the breeze, nourished by the steady, measured gift of water. Tin cans serve as planters, sturdy and unpretentious, gathering the drops like open palms. Elsewhere, in a balcony garden framed by bamboo, the story continues. Lettuce, with its full green curls, drinks slowly beneath a line of neatly labeled bottles. Each is marked with a refill date, a gardener's small promise to remember and return. This is a dance of patience, of care, of water shared over time. And then there is the sun, golden, kind, and low. It glows through the bottle walls, refracts through the condensation, and casts soft shadows that seem to breathe life into the setup. There is no filter here, no grand show, just the quiet poetry of a problem solved beautifully. If you've ever thought you needed more to begin gardening, more space, more tools, more budget, let this simple idea unravel that myth. All it takes is an old bottle, a bit of twine, and the will to try. And maybe a little paint, if your heart leans toward the whimsical. Let your garden know you're thinking of it, even when you're not home. Let gravity and ingenuity become your allies. And in every drop that falls, let it say, I see you. I care. Because gardening isn't only about what grows from the soil, it's about what grows inside of us too. (12) Bottle cap wallflowers. In a humble corner of the garden, where sunlight meets shadow and marigolds bloom along tidy borders, something extraordinary takes root. Not from soil, not from seeds, but from the cast-offs of everyday life. Bottle caps. They began as forgotten things. Popped-off sodas, iced teas, craft beers, tossed aside without a second thought. But here, In the hands of someone who sees the poetry in the practical, they become blossoms. Little suns and stars of plastic and metal, painted and arranged with care. One garden, nestled against the fence, holds a radiant mural. Dozens of caps, blue, red, white, yellow, fan out in perfect circles, forming a joyful carnival of permanent petals. It's not just art. It's a story of attention, of not letting color go to waste, of celebrating what was once discarded. Just steps away, a low brick planter carries its own bloom of whimsy. Pastel flowers made of caps, fixed to simple metal rods, dance among real impatiens and petunias. Their soft colors catch the sun and reflect the personality of their maker. Someone who likely sat quietly, maybe with a brush in one hand and tea in the other, giving each petal its place. Then, down a gravel path, an unexpected border garden. Wire stems rise from small containers, bearing bottle cap flowers like roadside wildflowers. No two are the same. Some caps are printed with logos or tiny illustrations. Others are old, scratched, worn. The beauty lies in that contrast, in the mix of memory and metal. This project isn't only about color or creativity. It's a tribute to slowness, to noticing, to choosing joy when it would be easier to just throw things away. It's the kind of DIY that costs nothing and gives everything. A fresh look at what our hands can do when they're not scrolling or discarding, but building. If you ever find yourself with a jar full of caps, don't rush to recycle. Pause, paint, arrange. Your fence might just be waiting for flowers that never fade. (13) Chalkboard plant signs. In gardens both grand and modest, there's something so tender about giving every plant a name. A word scrawled in chalk, simple yet full of meaning. These tiny signs do more than organize. They whisper stories about the hands that planted, the intentions rooted in soil. In one backyard corner, a quilt-like patch of earth stretches between square stepping stones. It's no larger than a child's bed, but it's alive with reds, greens, and golds. Lettuce leaves curl with grace, cherry tomatoes hang like ornaments, and bushy carrot tops sway in a soft afternoon breeze. Between each crop, a miniature chalkboard pokes proudly from the ground: Mamit, Furclay, Carotte. Not all are spelled right, and that's part of the magic. Some names are invented, imagined, perhaps by a curious child helping plant the seeds. The chalk is smudged here and there, as if a passing rain left its signature too. Beside them sits a pastel watering can, hand-painted with flowers. This isn't a garden for show, it's a garden for love. Then, high above the busy hum of the city, another garden quietly thrives. A balcony garden, barely wide enough for a yoga mat, lines up pots like students before class. Terracotta planters cradle herbs that smell of dinners yet to be cooked. Cilantro, parsley, oregano. Tied gently with twine or propped with popsicle sticks, tiny chalk signs dangle like reminders of care. The handwriting is uneven, some letters too big, some curling off to the edge. But it's honest. A mark of someone trying, someone nurturing life one sprout at a time. As golden hour settles on the ledge, the whole corner feels like a pocket of poetry in the middle of concrete. And then there's the herb patch, lush and fragrant, framed by mint, basil, and thyme. This is a garden with years behind it. You can tell by the weathered wood of the signs, each slat bearing chalk etchings ringed with suns and leaves. Some are whimsical, thia, not quite time. Others are beautifully illustrated, doodled with little smiling faces. These aren't just labels. They are living journal entries. They capture moments. The day a seedling finally sprouted. The early morning mist when someone came out barefoot to water the soil. Here's the truth. Chalkboard plant signs aren't just about organization. They're about presence. About paying attention. They say, I see you. I know you. You belong here. Want to try it yourself? It's simple. A bit of scrap wood. A coat of chalkboard paint. A stub of chalk and a quiet afternoon. Write the names. Draw the sun. Get it wrong. Smudge it. Rewrite it. Water the garden. Watch it grow. And above all, let your garden remember who you are. (14) Hanging glass jar herb lanterns. And in this garden, it comes in the form of simple glass jars, repurposed, reborn, and softly glowing. In the first scene, hanging delicately from weathered wood beams, mason jars dangle like fireflies caught in a still frame. Inside each one, an LED candle flickers alongside rosemary and thyme, their fresh sprigs tied gently with twine. They don't shout for attention. They whisper in golden hour tones. Their light isn't for show, it's for warmth. A signal to slow down, breathe deep, and sip your tea a little longer under the sky. Elsewhere, closer to earth, the jars are grounded, lined neatly along a gravel path between blooming garden beds. Lavender stems lean casually inside, their dried petals catching the glow of faux flames. Each jar, tied with rustic string, casts soft halos of light onto nearby watering cans and flowers just beginning to close for the night. There's no need for electricity here, just care, placement, and a willingness to make beauty from what's already in your cupboard. And then, tucked on a balcony table kissed by the last rays of sun, 3 glowing herb jars steal the scene. Mint and basil sprout upward from the mouths of these jars, wrapped in burlap and gently lit from within by fairy lights. They rest atop tree trunk slices, beside petal confetti and warm ceramic mugs. The scene isn't staged, it's lived in. And that makes all the difference. Want to recreate this magic? You don't need much. Just a few saved jars, some twine or jute, dried herbs, and any light source you trust outdoors. The secret isn't in how fancy the materials are, it's in the story you let them tell. Recycled doesn't mean forgotten. It means remembered in a new way. This idea isn't just about crafting light. It's about planting comfort, nurturing charm, and letting even the smallest corner of your home feel like a poem in glass and glow. (15) Painted brick garden borders. Sometimes the most extraordinary garden moments begin not with seeds, but with scraps. Along a tiny gravel path or hugging the edges of a shy herb bed, a row of weathered bricks finds new life, not buried, not discarded, but reborn as art. In one corner of a sunlit courtyard, vibrant bricks greet the eye like cheerful storytellers. Some wear painted daisies, Others smile back at you with bright yellow suns or whimsical spirals in soft lavender and mint. Their corners are chipped, their surfaces imperfect, but that is their charm. These bricks do not try to look new. They simply belong. They're tokens of hands that dared to create, to color outside the lines, and to gift whimsy to the edges of soil. Further along, nestled between flower beds, bricks once dull are now pressed gently into sand, each one a palette of leaf stencils and earthy hues. Moss green, burnt orange, faded cobalt. Some of the leaves were real once, used as stencils before vanishing into memory. Morning dew rests on their surfaces, reflecting sunlight and whispering, "Look closer. There's beauty here." And there, tucked beside a patch of mint and strawberries, the most honest border of all, bricks painted by small hands. Uneven brush strokes, wobbly smiley faces, daisies that tilt just a little too much. It's not a mistake, it's a love letter to play, to the joy of being outside, together. These borders don't just divide, they invite. They speak not only of design, but of days well spent with family, with laughter, and the grounding rhythm of dirt beneath fingernails. Practical tip: made gentle. You don't need to buy new. Look around. Bricks from old paths, renovation scraps, or second-hand finds can all be transformed. Use outdoor acrylic paint and a coat of weatherproof sealant. Let the surface dry under sun or starlight. Paint alone, or invite others, especially little ones. Add leaves for stencils, or press wildflowers gently into wet paint for organic texture. Let the brush be imperfect. That's the point. Because in a tiny garden, it's not about symmetry or scale. It's about the quiet poetry of care. The small moments we decide to see beauty where others might not. And with each painted brick you place, you're not just decorating soil. You're rooting memory, color, and delight right into the land beneath your feet. Let your borders bloom. If this video meant something to you, please know that subscribing means the world to me. You're not just supporting content, you're supporting a dream that keeps my family going. Thank you, truly. I'd also love to hear from you. What did you enjoy the most? Is there anything I could do better to keep inspiring or simply entertaining you? Your feedback helps this channel grow with heart and purpose. Let me know in the comments. I read every one.